Cold coffee, fluorescent hum, the sound of 10 empty floors stacked above you like a concrete spine. That was my life from 10 at night to 6 in the morning, 5 nights a week. My name is Harlan Birch. I'm 63 years old. I spent 35 years working in veterans hospitals, orderly, patient transport, sometimes just sitting with a man while he cried at 4 in the morning because the morphine wore off and the memories didn't. I retired in 2021. They gave me a plaque with my name spelled wrong and a sheet cake from the grocery store. That was that. The apartment was the problem. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that echoed. My wife Margaret passed in 2020. Cancer, the quiet kind that doesn't yell until it's too late. My daughter moved to Oregon the following year. Said she needed space. I understood. I needed the opposite. I took the night security job at the old VA building on 8th Street because it smelled right. I know that sounds strange, but when you spend 3 decades in government hallways, the floor wax, the disinfectant, the particular way old drywall holds onto decades of cafeteria soup and burnt coffee, your body starts to recognize it the way a dog recognizes home. The old VA building smelled like my entire career packed into 10 floors of silence. The building was put up in 1961, 10 stories, poured concrete, government standard, flat roof with a drainage system that sang when it rained. It was decommissioned in 2020. Same year Margaret died, actually, though I didn't think about that at the time. The federal government still owned it. Most of the upper floors were stripped bare. No furniture, no ceiling tiles in some spots, just exposed ductwork and the ghosts of desk arrangements visible in the carpet wear patterns. But floors 1 through 3 still held filing cabinets, rows and rows of them. Patient records going back to the Korean War. Intake forms, medical histories, discharge summaries, death certificates, thousands of lives in manila folders organized by codes that nobody alive remembers how to read. My job was simple. Show up at 10, walk the perimeter, check the exterior doors. There were 7, and 3 of them had been welded shut when the building closed. Check the lobby cameras. I had 1 working monitor at the security desk that cycled through 6 feeds. Most of them showed empty hallways lit by emergency lighting that made everything look underwater. The front entrance, the loading dock, stairwell A, stairwell B, the parking lot, which was always empty except for my truck. There was a vending machine in the lobby corner. It only sold water. The snack side had been emptied years ago, and the company never came back to restock. But it still hummed. That hum was my companion. That and the rain. Topeka gets a particular kind of April rain. Cold, steady, not dramatic. Just persistent. Like it's trying to wear the building down one night at a time. I brought paperbacks, I brought a thermos. I sat at the desk and I listened to a building breathe. The PA speakers. I noticed them my first week. Little beige boxes, wall-mounted, 1 on every stairwell landing and 2 in the lobby. Old public address system, wired to a central unit on the 2nd floor, the kind they used to page doctors in the 70s. When the building was decommissioned, the whole system was disconnected. I'd seen the panel on the 2nd floor during my walkthroughs. A metal cabinet with the door hanging open, cables cut clean, power strip unplugged. Dead technology. I thought about it the way you think about a phone booth, a thing that used to matter and doesn't anymore. 3 weeks into the job, I was doing my 1 a.m. stairwell check. 7th floor landing. The emergency light above the door was flickering the way it always did. Bad ballast, probably. I was about to head back down when I heard something above me. A pop. Soft. Like a microphone clicking on. The sound a PA speaker makes when it receives signal before audio comes through. I looked up. The beige box on the wall was the same as every other one. Dented, dust on the grill, the tiny power LED, dark of course. I stood there for 30 seconds. maybe 40. Nothing. Just old wiring, I told myself. Buildings 60 plus years old. Things settle. Copper corrodes. Contacts touch in the cold. I wrote it in my log. Minor electrical anomaly. Stairwell B, floor 7, 3 hours, and went back downstairs. The vending machine hummed. The rain fell. I poured more coffee and turned the page of my book. That should have been the end of it. 4 nights later, Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were the quietest. Something about the middle of the week made even the rain sound thinner. I was on the 9th floor landing doing my second round. Stairwell A this time. 2:40 in the morning. I had my flashlight in one hand and my log clipboard in the other, and I was thinking about nothing in particular when the speaker above me popped. Same sound, that soft click, microphone contact, then static. Not the hiss you get from a dead channel. This was textured, like someone had recorded the inside of a seashell and was playing it back through old government wiring. It lasted exactly 11 seconds. I know because I counted, an orderly habit counting things. Pulse rates, breaths per minute, drops in an IV bag. You count because counting keeps you from thinking about what you're counting. Then a voice, a man's voice, calm, flat, the kind of voice that reads numbers at a deli counter or calls names at a waiting room. Clinical, no emotion, no urgency, just information being delivered to nobody. Victor Foxtrot 7243. Then silence. The speaker went dead. The stairwell was just concrete and cold air again. I stood there with my pen hovering over the clipboard. My hands were steady. I want you to understand that. 35 years in hospitals, I've held dying men's hands and changed bedsheets with blood on them and listened to grown soldiers scream the names of people who weren't in the room. A voice from a dead speaker wasn't going to make my hands shake. But I wrote the code down, Victor Foxtrot 7243, and I went downstairs and I checked the PA panel on the 2nd floor. Same as always, cabinet open, cables cut, power strip unplugged, dust undisturbed. I told myself it was radio bleed. Old military buildings sometimes pick up frequencies. The wiring acts like an antenna, catches stray signals from truckers or emergency bands. It happens. I'd heard about it. I went back to the lobby and drank my coffee, and that was that. Next night, 2:40 a.m., I was on the 5th floor this time. Different stairwell, stairwell B, and it happened again. Pop. 11 seconds of static, a different code. Lima Charlie 1889, same voice, same flat delivery, same silence after. This time I recorded it on my phone. Played it back 3 times in the lobby. The recording was clean. You could hear the static, the voice, and then the concrete echo fading out. I saved it. Here's the thing about me. I'm not a curious man by nature. 35 years of hospital work teaches you that some questions have answers you don't want. But these were intake codes. I recognized the format. Victor Foxtrot, Lima Charlie. Military phonetics followed by a 4-digit number. That was a VA patient intake code. I'd seen them on thousands of wristbands. The file room was on the 3rd floor. Rows of metal cabinets under buzzing lights that never turned all the way off. I found the intake log binders, thick vinyl things organized by decade. I looked up Victor Foxtrot 7243, James R. Ogilvy, Korean War, infantry, admitted to this facility on March 14, 1974. Chronic PTSD, alcohol dependency. Deceased November 2, 1979. Cause, cardiac arrest, secondary to liver failure. I looked up the second one. Lima Charlie 1889. Thomas Weir, Vietnam, combat medic, admitted June 1982, deceased January 1991, pancreatic cancer, both real, both dead, both treated in this building. I didn't tell anyone. Who was I going to tell? The property management company that sent me a check every 2 weeks and never visited. They'd send someone to evaluate my fitness for duty. I'd seen it happen to nurses who reported things that didn't fit on a form. You become the problem, instead of the person who found one. So I started keeping a notebook. Small, spiral-bound, the kind I used to use for patient vitals. Every night I went to a different stairwell landing. Every night at 2:40 the speaker popped. 11 seconds of static. One intake code. I wrote them down. Next morning, or sometimes during shift if the file room called to me, I looked them up. Every single one was real. Every single one was dead. After 2 weeks, I had 14 codes. 14 veterans. Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, one from World War II. All treated here, all deceased. I arranged them by death date, and they were in order. Chronological. Whoever, whatever was reading these numbers was going through the dead in sequence. Earliest death first, working forward, a roll call. That's what it was. Someone was calling roll for the dead, and the building was the only one listening. The building and me. 3 weeks in. 17 intake codes in my notebook. 17 names. 17 veterans who'd walked these hallways, sat in these waiting rooms, slept in beds on floors that were now stripped down to bare concrete. I'd verified every one. The voice never wavered. Same pitch, same cadence, same flat clinical tone you'd use to read a grocery list or a phone number to a stranger. I decided to go to the roof. The 10th floor stairwell had a steel door with a push bar that opened onto the flat roof. It was supposed to be locked, but the deadbolt mechanism had rusted through years ago and nobody had replaced it. I'd checked the roof during my first week. Standard procedure, make sure nobody was sleeping up there. No signs of forced entry. Just gravel membrane, drainage vents, and the rain. I went up at 2:35, 5 minutes early. I wanted to be standing right under the speaker when it happened. The rooftop landing was colder than the lower floors. Wind came through the gap under the roof door, a thin, high whistle that sounded almost intentional, like the building was breathing through its teeth. The PA speaker up here was the same beige box as every other one. Same dust, same dead LED. 2:40, pop. The static was louder here. Or maybe the concrete stairwell on the top floor had different acoustics. Narrower, tighter, like the inside of a well. 11 seconds, I counted. Then the voice. Mike Bravo 0317. I wrote it down, went home, slept 3 hours, came back the next afternoon and went straight to the file room. Mike Bravo 03117. I found the binder, found the code, opened the folder. Margaret Birch, Army Nurse Corps, served 1980 to 1988. Patient intake. September 2016. Treatment for clinical depression following cancer diagnosis. Status, active, outpatient. My wife. She was a veteran, Army nurse. She'd been stationed at Fort Riley, just up the road. When she got her diagnosis in 2016, the first diagnosis before the remission, before it came back, she came to this building. This very building. She'd sat in a waiting room somewhere on the second floor and filled out intake paperwork, and someone had assigned her a code, and that code had lived in a manila folder in a metal cabinet ever since. She died in 2020, but her file still said active. Nobody had updated it. Nobody had closed it. In the system, Margaret Birch was still a patient. I sat in the file room for a long time. The light buzzed. Rain tapped on the window. I held her folder and I read her intake form, her handwriting, her social security number, her emergency contact, me, my name, my phone number from 4 years ago. I put the folder back. That night, I didn't go to the stairwell. I sat at the lobby desk and I drank coffee and I stared at the monitor cycling through empty hallways. 2:40 came. I heard nothing. The lobby speakers were farther from the stairwells. I told myself it was fine. Then the lobby speaker, the one mounted above the entrance, the one 6 feet from my desk, popped. Pam! Static. 11 seconds. The sound filled the lobby like water filling a sink. The vending machine seemed to get quieter, as if it was listening too. The voice read one more code. Hotel Bravo 9187. I didn't write it down. I didn't need to. Hotel Bravo 9187. My code. From 1987, when I threw out my back lifting a patient and the VA treated me as one of their own. Employee benefit, veteran spouse provision, something bureaucratic. They gave me an intake number. I'd forgotten about it for 36 years. The building hadn't. I finished my shift, drove home, sat in my apartment. The apartment was quiet the way it always is, the kind of quiet that has weight, that presses on your chest when you lie down. I thought about calling my daughter, picked up the phone, put it back. I went back the next night, and the night after that. The speakers haven't broadcast since. Every night at 2:40, I go to a different stairwell and I stand under the speaker and I wait. Nothing. Just concrete and cold air and the rain on the roof 10 floors up. 18 names in my notebook. 17 veterans and one orderly who spent his whole life in these hallways. All accounted for. All answered. I keep the notebook on the security desk, open to the last page. Sometimes I read the names out loud, just to myself, just to keep them company. The vending machine hums, the rain falls, the building holds its records and its silence, and I sit at my desk and I wait for the speaker to pop one more time. It hasn't. I'm not sure if that's better